Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Barbara Gould, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer. And I'm joined this evening by our High School South counselors, Ms. Walsh, who's our lead counselor at High School South, Ms. Rooney, Ms. Javik, and Ms. Ficini. So thank you to our counselors for being here and providing a wealth of knowledge for you. Just a couple of logistics. You may have noticed that the chat is currently turned off, and that is intentional. We promise that we will turn the chat on later in the presentation to give people the opportunity to ask questions, but we find that often we are able to answer the questions throughout the presentation, and therefore waiting to turn the chat on just ensures that everyone is able to really attend to what's happening and the information that's being shared. The other question that always comes up right away is whether or not the presentation will be recorded. It is being recorded, and it will be posted on our district website and available for families and students to view once it is over, and it usually gets posted within 48 hours. So you are able to access it later on, as well as the slides that are being shared this evening will also be available for families to download, as well as students. All right, and I know Ms. Walsh will also go over this, but the counselors will be meeting with seniors in smaller groups to review some of the information that's shared tonight and to really target the question and answer period to students' specific questions. So hold tight and enjoy all of the information that you will learn this evening. So thank you, Ms. Walsh, for leading the way.
Thanks, Dr. Gould. Welcome everybody to Senior College Planning Night. As Dr. Gould mentioned, we will be having meetings tomorrow. So tonight is a lot of information that's just going to kind of introduce you to the process and kind of a whole new set of vocabulary with regards to the college process. And then tomorrow we'll be able to answer some more specific questions that come from tonight. And of course, we'll probably be answering questions from now till February. So so rest assured, this you'll get this and it'll be fine. Just a couple housekeeping items. We have the high school counseling class of 2024 Google Classroom. I think by now most of you students have joined this. If you haven't, please do so. We provide a lot of really valuable information into that Google Classroom. A lot of stuff that needs to be done for the college process, the rep visits, college fair, lots of senior business that happens throughout the whole year. So it's a really important resource. Check your email regularly. I know it's a little old-fashioned supposedly for teenagers to check emails, but we do still use emails and we send a lot out. So please make sure you stay in touch with your email, stay connected to your email. And then connect with Naviance often. You won't have a choice with that. As you see from here, you'll be using Naviance a lot throughout this entire process. A few upcoming events. Some of you may know that today was the first day of our admission rep visits. We had 2 universities that came to our school today during lunch, and we'll have at least 2 universities coming to our school from now to like December. They're listed in Naviance. It's a great opportunity to speak to the reps. If you're applying to their college and they're coming to our school, you really should make sure you take the time to get in there. These are the admission reps that will be reading your applications. So it's great to chat with them. It's great for any lingering questions you might have for them. It shows you have some interest, that you took time out of your lunch to come and meet with them. So please pay attention to the schedule that's in Naviance. We also announce it each week. We have it in Google Classroom. We have it a lot of different places. Just kind of pay attention to that and take advantage of that great opportunity. As we mentioned before, tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be having meetings depending on your counselor. So at the end of this presentation, we have who's meeting tomorrow, which counselors will be meeting tomorrow and the locations, and which counselors will be meeting on the 20th and the locations as well. We also have an upcoming college fair on October 19th. This QR code that you see on the screen is Strive Fair. For those of you that came last year, you might remember that once you register at Strive Fair, when you come to the fair, You can just scan at your different colleges to show that you stopped by rather than filling out a card. You don't have to worry about that tonight. We're going to go over that again tomorrow. But just so you know that that's upcoming. We already have over 100 really great schools signed up for our fair, and those registrations continue to come in every day. We will eventually provide a more comprehensive list of who's coming, so you have that information. So this is going to get to this is where we get to the nitty gritty of what we have to do. So students that are applying to college in their senior year have a lot of pieces that need to get to their college. And although the student is kind of the manager of this process, different people in the process have different roles. So the school counselor, for example, is going to write the mandatory counselor recommendation, get the transcript, the secondary school report, and the school profile that's required of almost every application. The student is going to contact the teacher for their recommendations. If you haven't done so already, the counselor rec packet, and we'll kind of dive into more detail with some of these as we go through. Request your transcript in Naviance. If you want to submit your scores, you'll be the one contacting the college board or ACT to get those scores released to the proper schools, and then ultimately submit your application. Your teachers will be writing their recommendation for the teacher recommendation. And then, of course, parents always have a role, and your role is basically in support and managing these deadlines and helping them navigate their process while keeping 2 feet on the ground and maintaining their happiness and enjoying senior year all at the same time. The most important part that I'm going to stress throughout all of this is in the heading right there, that everyone is working at the same time. So while you're working hard on your application, and lots of students have already been in here asking questions about the Common App and this and that, your counselor needs to be working hard on your recommendation letter and gathering all your other documents together. Your teacher needs to be working on their recommendation letter so that eventually everything arrives at the school by the deadline or around the same time. It doesn't have to arrive on the same day, but what can't happen is that the student does their part. They work so hard, they have a November 1 deadline, and on October 31st, they walk in and say, "Hey, Miss Walsh, my stuff's all done. Can you send my things?" And we didn't even know where they were applying because we're not all working at the same time. We can't do a recommendation letter and pull our pieces together for all the kids that we have in one day. So I'm going to explain that process, and I'm going to reiterate this everyone working at the same time philosophy as we go through. So the first steps as we enter into senior year, now that you're hopefully getting settled into your courses and stuff, is you kind of want to start to look at the list that you have and finalize it. It doesn't have to be finalized today. You may discover some new schools through the rep visits that come at lunch, or even through the college fair, but you should start to some of you had a lot of colleges I'm thinking about and so forth. So you should start based on your research. If you did any visits over the summer, sort of start to finalize that list. You should have some idea, once you have your list, how you're applying. It's either Common App, which is a lot of the schools, Coalition App, or maybe they don't use either and they have a specific application. If a college uses the Common App, because we utilize Naviance, you must use the Common App. So one thing we want to say is sometimes not every high school in the country has Naviance, and the Common App and VIP applications are meant for, are kind of geared towards the whole country, not necessarily knowing that you have Naviance. Because we have Naviance and our documents are going to go through Naviance, if they utilize the Common App, you should utilize the Common App. If a school has a VIP application and they say, "Oh, if you use this application, it's free, please see us." It's free if you use the Common App too. You don't have to use the VIP application. And actually, if you use the VIP application, your documents can never be sent electronically. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And again, we'll reiterate that tomorrow. If they use the Common App, by all means, use the Common App. So just a few things of troubleshooting the Common App where students get sometimes a little tripped up, or we have kind of like frequently asked questions. In the education system section, you're just going to choose our high school from the drop down menu. It'll then fill in our address and our school code and so forth. Our class size is 417. I provided that in an email in the summer, but just to reiterate, because they asked that. When it talks about class rank, we do not have class rank. So you would just indicate that we don't have class rank. The question that causes another section that causes a lot of questions is the honors section. Kids are like, what do you mean by honors? So again, remember the Common App is for the whole country. There are schools that have honor roll and different things, and we don't have honor roll. So you won't have honor roll. So really, you might not have any honors, so to speak, but it's just there in case you do, just to give you another place to put things that you might want to communicate to them. So other examples of honors might be National Honor Society, if you're a National Merit. You can even put an honor if you won an award with Science Olympiad or a Boy Scout or Girl Scout award, or you were honored with something else. Now, it doesn't have to go in the honors section. Some of that stuff could also fall under leadership in the activities section or service or something like that. So at the end of the day, what I like to tell students is sometimes it doesn't really matter whether you put it in honors or whether you put it in activities or that, just make sure you get it in there. If you have a gold award and you want to make sure that they know you have a Girl Scout gold award, by all means, put it somewhere, whether you call it an honor or whether you call it an activity or whether you call it leadership or service, and you'll see those sections. So it's common that people will want to put that stuff in the activity section. And so they might not have any honors, and that's all okay, because we don't have a lot of opportunities necessarily for specific honors like honor roll and things like that. So that's, and again, we'll reiterate that sometimes students feel uncomfortable if they just leave that blank because it's a little early on in the application, but they do not need to fret about the honors piece. The FERPA release. So if you can see over here, and this is a Common App screenshot, and I'm on one of my colleges. This happens to be Bucknell University. When you click on any school, the stuff in the left-hand side will be the same for every school. So you'll have the college information, you'll have questions, you'll have recommendations and FERPA and so forth. So the FERPA release is under recommendations and FERPA, makes sense, right? And basically what the FERPA is that it protects the privacy of students and their particular academic records. So when you waive your right to the FERPA, basically what you're letting the colleges know is that you're not reading your recommendation letters, and to the colleges, that reassures them the validity and the truthfulness of your recommendation letters. Even if you didn't waive your right, you wouldn't be able to read your recommendation letters until you actually enrolled in a college, went to the admissions office and asked to read your recommendation. This is, by the way, sort of explained in the Common App. We want all students to waive their right. It makes their recommendation letter more valid, and so forth, and trust me that we've all been doing this a long time. If a teacher agrees to write a recommendation letter, they're certainly going to highlight your strengths, and they're not looking to not write something nice about you. So you want them to be able to go to town to write all about you, all the great things they know about you. And you want the colleges to know that that is a valid recommendation letter and that you really had no part in it. But truthfully, you do have a part in it, because we allow you the opportunity, or we kind of force you the opportunity to do the student input for the teacher. And there's a lot of questions in there that you can tell your teacher why you chose them, what you learned in that class, what was challenging, what you did when you had that challenge, and so forth. And it's really good material for the teachers to use when to couple with their own information when they're writing your recommendation. So you have a say in your recommendation. You just you don't read it, and the recommendation will go directly to the colleges, which makes it more valid. So it's really important. The most important piece to this is that you can't change it once you did it. It's the weirdest thing, I know, because usually you can undo almost everything in life anymore electronically, right? This is the one thing you cannot undo. So please be very careful. and make sure that when you get to that FERPA release, that you are waiving your right to that recommendation. Another section that's important for those of you that might be applying early decision. So if you look on the left-hand side, again, I'm still on Bucknell, but instead of the recommendations and FERPA, I'm looking at the questions. And under questions, there's going to be one of the questions that comes and asks what kind of admission plan you want. And when you do that drop-down menu, it's only going to be the admission plans that Bucknell offers. So notice there's no early action because Bucknell doesn't offer an early action. They offer an early decision, an early decision 2, and a regular decision. If you are applying early decision to any school, it is a binding agreement. You're basically saying that no matter what, if you accept me, I'm coming. No matter what financial package you give me or what anything else, if you accept me, I'm coming. And so some students like to do that. And there's, pros and cons to early decision. But if you do that, because it's a binding agreement, once you do that, it's going to, over here, you'll see it's going to make you invite a parent. And the parent has to sign off also saying that they are aware that you're applying early decision. And actually your counselor will have to sign off saying that we counseled you on the binding agreement of early decision. So there's a few hoops to jump through for early decision to make sure that you're very clear what early decision means when you're applying early decision to a college. It is definitely a binding contract. On this same page up here, you're going to see invite recommenders. Notice we highlighted, do not request teachers through common application. Okay, remember the common application is for every school in the country and not every school has Naviance. If you read the fine print here, it says your school's using Naviance, see your counselor. Okay, if you invite a teacher through Common App, we can't send your stuff electronically through Naviance, and then everything also that can't be undone. And then we are not able to, your stuff won't connect properly to Common App. So you don't really have to understand the technicalities of it, but just do me a favor, don't request any teachers through Common App. If somebody has a WWP address, which is all of your teachers, they should all be requested through Naviance, and I'm going to show you that when we get to the Naviance section of this presentation. Okay, so that's really important. So early decision, invite a parent signs off, counselor signs off, and then on the same page, the recommenders, just be careful that you don't ask any West Windsor teachers you don't ask them through common application. And now we'll kind of get into Naviance. So remember here, we're working with common application and we're working with Naviance, and they sort of merge up. You're going to match them so that they're all connected and they arrive to the schools and land in the same file, so to speak, that they need to be in. So this is kind of junior year news, but transcripts will not be transcript requests will not be accepted without the completion of your counselor rec packet. We've been talking about this counselor rec packet since last January. So if you're not sure what we're talking about, you're making me a little nervous already, but we can get through that. I know with my students, and I think with some of the other counselors, a lot of you have completed this. And then there's some of you that have like a piece missing here, or a piece missing there. And so tomorrow or Wednesday, when you have your meeting, you might, if you're not sure if it's complete, you might want to ask your counselor if you still owe something and what you owe. Because if you request a transcript and there's a piece missing, we can't really accept that transcript. Our sort of timeline won't start until we have all the pieces that you need. So this is under my surveys is where you're going to find, don't use this person as an example because they haven't started a darn thing, but hopefully yours say started and completed. This is also where you find the student input for teacher recommendations. So this is, did I just go backwards? Sorry. Yeah, now I'm going forward. Back to Naviance. If you're requesting transcripts, so a lot of you have your colleges right now in colleges I'm thinking about. And it probably looks something like this. And we worked on this last year. We encouraged you to put the schools, any school you were thinking about, into Naviance. Now it's time to decide which of those schools you're actually going to be applying to. Also on this screen, this is where you're going to see your delivery type. So for example, American University, a computer with a CA is Common Application. University of Alaska Fairbanks and University UC Berkeley has an open computer with no CA. That means they're not Common App. They have their own application on their website. So you get to see sort of the delivery of that. So now that you have your list, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to apply to all of these, or I'm going to pick these 8 schools. I definitely know I'm applying. You don't have to do this. You can choose 3 now, and 2 weeks from now, you can add another one and choose 3 more. It's not like a one and done kind of thing. So early on, the schools that you know you're applying to, you would do this, and then know that you can always add a school when maybe you discover, like I said, a school at the college fair or through rep visits or something like that. So you're basically going to click on the schools that you want to apply to, and you're going to choose move to your application list. These schools, remember, have to be on your Common App as well. Once you do that, it's going to ask you, okay, great. How are you applying? Regular decision, early action, what have you. How are you going to submit your application? And when you do the drop-down menu, only the ones that they accept will be there. So if it says Common App, remember, we're always choosing Common App if it says Common App. Okay, but remember, UC Berkeley didn't do Common App, so we choose an option called Direct to the Institution. It then asks, are you planning to submit your SAT or ACT scores to be considered for the admission review process? Remember that there are many, many schools. There always were schools that were test optional, even prior to COVID. But with COVID, a lot more schools went test optional when students didn't have the opportunity to take the tests. But even having done that, colleges have recognized that maybe that should be optional because they still got some really good applicants that maybe didn't have the test scores that put them in the best light. And so a lot of schools, not every school, but a lot of schools have remained test optional. That's something you're going to want to know about your schools when you're making this decision. So then you're going to decide and whether your test scores put you in the best light at that particular school. So it's not, again, all or nothing. It's not like I'm submitting to no one or I'm submitting to everyone. You can choose which schools you submit to based on how you feel about your test scores. There are some schools that have gone away with the test optional. So obviously, if it's not test optional, you're going to have to submit your scores. You're then, once you fill in for each of the schools that you're applying to, you're going to click Add and Manage Transcripts. Then it's going to come up and said, what kind of transcript do you want? For now, it's all initial. You're going to see that these colleges eventually are going to want a mid-year transcript, and they're eventually going to want a final transcript. So the news in this message is that they care about your senior year grades, and they're going to be asking for them, and they may even ask for first mark and paired report cards, and they want your mid-year grades. They want to know how you're doing in senior year. But for now, when you're asking for a transcript, it's only an initial transcript. There's another question here that says, what additional materials do you want to include? And it gives you an opportunity to say test scores. We do not send test scores from West Windsor. So again, this is for, whoever else might be doing that. But if you want your test scores sent, you have them sent through College Board. If they accept unofficial scores, which many schools do, unofficial means they just don't come from College Board. You report them. Then if you get in, you might have to prove that what you reported is actually accurate. So again, that's school by school, and you might want to check into that, just because if you send them from College Board or ACT organization, it's usually, $10 a school or something like that. It actually costs money. So you might want to check into that if they require scores or when they require scores. Then again, you click Request and Finish. So remember, our things have to sort of connect so that they all get there together. Your stuff, the Common Application gets there and matches up with your recommendation letters and your profile and your transcript and all the things that we send through Naviance. So when you go into colleges I'm applying to, if you're not matched, which no one will be matched until they actually match, you're going to get this message that comes up in kind of like a pink. And it says you must match your Naviance account to your Common Application. It looks like you're not able to apply because you haven't matched. You click match, it's going to redirect to your Common App. You're going to log into your Common App, and magically it's just going to kind of all connect. So that's just a step. Again, this is a lot, and it's a lot of steps right now. But I think when you're actually doing it and you hear the word match, hopefully you're going to remember, oh, I remember why we have to match. I remember what's happening. And so you just sort of start to understand the vocabulary of this Naviance and Common Application process. Teacher recommendations. Remember, I told you that you don't request teacher recommendations through the Common App because we use Naviance. So you're going to go in Naviance, and you're going to be choosing which teacher will be reading your responses. I'm sorry, this is your input. Hopefully you did your input. If you haven't, you should do your input if that's what your teachers require for your teacher recommendation. But then it's going to say, who would you like to write this recommendation? You're going to choose a teacher. I used one of our language arts teachers as an example, Ellen Glassband. And then under that, it's going to give the list of schools that you have in colleges I'm applying to. And you have to specifically say which schools you want Miss Glassband or whoever to send your letters to. That is you giving permission for us to send those letters to those particular schools. You'll also notice on this same frame, I know there's only two, but if you had a whole list, it would show. If you look at American University, it tells you that, I'm sorry, 1 is required and 2 are allowed. Okay, so then that helps you decide who you want to ask. Sometimes there's going to be schools where only 1 is allowed. And if you have 2 teachers, which is what we encouraged you to do, you're going to make that decision on which teacher sends to which school, because you're going to say, I want Miss Glassband, but I don't want her to send here because I want my math teacher to send to this particular school, or something like that. So you have total control over that. Whenever you add a new school, you'll need to go in and add a teacher or 2 and give permission again for them to send their recommendation. Then the teacher will be able to use your input form, and as well as what they know about you, write a beautiful recommendation letter for you and submit it directly to the college because you've granted permission through this recommendation screen in Naviance. There's a lot of self-reporting schools now, and what that means is that they actually make their decision initially on your own self-reporting of coursework and grades. They make their decision. They don't have they don't ask for a transcript. They do eventually ask for a transcript if they accept you and you decide to attend there. They will want a final transcript, and then they will compare line by line the final transcript with what you self-reported. So Rutgers is an example of that. The University of Pittsburgh is another example. That's actually a lot of examples. A lot of large state universities have gone to this. The SRAR is a self-reported academic record. Rutgers uses it, but it's almost like a common application kind of thing, in that lots of people use what they call the SRAR. It's the same SRAR for Pitt as you might be for Rutgers and so forth. You'll utilize your unofficial transcript to complete that report. Tomorrow and Wednesday, when we have our meetings, you will be getting your unofficial transcripts, and you want to kind of hang on to that and keep it to yourself. It's not really a public document. Remember, it's just your transcript. It shows your journey of growth through high school. But you will use that at home when you complete your self-reported academic record. It has all your classes that you've taken since 9th grade, and the grades that you earned and so forth. Sometimes they ask for what we call New Jersey Smart ID. That is located in your Naviance account profile if you're looking for that. That's an ID that every New Jersey student has, a New Jersey Smart ID. Deadlines matter. So remember, I told you that everybody's working together at the same time. So when I say transcript requests must be received 3 weeks prior to the earliest deadline. So let's take probably one of our earliest deadlines, November 1st. We need your request by October 11th. Now, sometimes when we say this, students panic. Oh my gosh, I'll never have everything done by October 11th. You don't have to have anything done by October 11th except requesting a transcript through Naviance, that process we just showed you that takes just a few minutes. that tells me or any of the counselors, hey, I'm applying, at least for now, I'm applying to these 4 schools, and I'm going to need a recommendation, a transcript, a school profile, and the secondary school report form that's required. And then we get that and we say, okay, great. I got it October 11th. I have until November 1st to do yours and, 60 others. So we're working. But by the way, you're then also working. Remember, we're doing it at the same time. You should also have to give your teachers that same lead time because, again, they're really writing for a number of students and they want to be working. They want to know at least by October 11th that you have a November 1st deadline, and so that they can work. Will it take them to November 1st? It might, or it might not. As long as it's there by November 1st, that's what matters. But what matters, again, is that you cannot show up here on October 31st and be like, we got everything done. Now you can do your part. And then we have a day. Okay. It's really important that you understand all the pieces involved and the people involved. And you're responsible for managing it in the respect that you're responsible for telling Miss Javik through your transcript request, hey, I'm applying here and I need this letter and so forth. Hey, Miss Glassband or Mr. Brack or whoever, I need my teacher recs and I have November 1st deadline, so kind of get moving. Okay, you're responsible for doing that. You request the teachers through Naviance, you request us through Naviance. Then once you get your other people working, you go to your desk and then you start doing your own work, having faith that your counselor and your teachers are doing their piece. And then by November 1st, all the pieces land at the school. Okay, so these are just some of the more common deadlines. So we put these in here. Do note that a couple common deadlines are January 1st and January 15th. So those are due to us, those requests are due to us by December 1st because we have to get those done prior to the winter break. We're not really processing transcripts over the winter break. So it's really important that we kind of abide by this timeline. Again, your things do not have to be done. We're not asking you to have your stuff done three weeks in advance. We're just asking you to give us the 3 weeks while you're still working. Okay. The other piece, again, I'll emphasize, if you don't have all the parts of your counselor rec packet, which are again reiterated here, the recommendation packet, the FERPA waiver, and if you have an early decision agreement, if those aren't completed, if you request on October 11th and we're still missing all of that, kind of our 3-week time clock can't start until we have everything that we need to process your application. So it's really important that over the next few days, really, or next week, you make sure that if you're missing pieces of this recommendation packet, that you kind of pull them together and get that done. Okay. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid that everybody should complete because it's free. And this year, I don't know if we have any people that this isn't their first go around, but the FAFSA date that it comes out has changed over the past couple of years. It used to be January 1st. They moved it to October 1st. Now they're doing some work on it. So this particular year, a 1-year stint, it does not come out until December 1st. So you can actually do your college stuff and not worry about the FAFSA until the December 1st release. And then you're going to have to work on the FAFSA. Another student aid form that you might see in some of your schools is the CSS profile. That's not listed here, but there's schools that use the CSS profile and the FAFSA. It just provides a little more detailed information. And usually if they use the CSS profile, it's mandatory that you complete it. And then again, colleges have their own deadlines with regard to the FAFSA form and the CSS profile. So also be aware of your financial aid deadline so you don't miss out on any potential aid in that way. What is next? I promised you about these meetings, right? So tomorrow, for example, if you look at the chart on the left-hand side here, Miss Erico, myself, Miss Ficini, and Miss Parrott will be meeting students in those rooms. And then on Wednesday, Miss Javik, Miss Smith, Mr. Alberto, and Miss Rooney will be meeting students in those same rooms, but just on Wednesday. We're going to sort of have a follow-up lesson kind of Q&A to what we covered tonight. Maybe go into a little more detail, pull up Naviance on the screen and kind of literally show you, and answer some of your questions. We're also giving out your unofficial transcripts on that day as well. So please make sure you attend your lunch meeting. Please pack your lunch. I'll never ask you to pack your lunch again if you don't like packing your lunch, but if you stand in line for lunch and then come, you're going to miss half of the session because you know how long the lunch lines are. And since I'm speaking to seniors, you probably don't stand in lunch lines because some of you go out to lunch. So this is going to be a day when we're going to ask you not to go out to lunch. And please come to our session so you can get your transcript, get your questions answered, and we can kind of do it in a group for efficiency purposes. Okay. How can I contact my counselor? We now have Google Appointment Calendar. Some of you were very familiar with You Can Book Me. It's the same idea, and many of you have found us already because we sent out an email to all the teachers, and we have a new QR code document hanging in our office as well as throughout the school. So you can certainly utilize that like you have with You Can Book Me. You just scan the QR code, it brings you to our calendar, and you can schedule appointments that way. Lunch pop-ins, if we're available. Many times we don't eat lunch the time that you eat lunch, but if we remember from now till December, every day there's at least 2 college admission reps that are coming to our school. So there's a couple counselors every day that are kind of hosting those admission reps, and so they're not fully available during lunch. So there's no guarantee, but certainly feel free to pop in. And if it's a Tuesday and I'm doing a college admissions rep, that means Wednesday I'm probably going to be more available or something like that. So you would at least know that. So we welcome that. Another resource that we have for you, and I'm linking it. I linked it to this document, which will be in your Google Classroom, but this is actually already in your Google Classroom. And this is what we kind of pulled together called the College Process Answers. So we sort of separated out different information. So there's, with the Common App, if you have questions about the ED agreement or do's and don'ts, or certain sections, or how to find the FERPA, if you have specific questions, you can kind of go to this answers document, click on that, and it'll take you just to that particular thing. So for example, if you want to know how to match your account and you click on the matching account, you can see that it comes up to that pink screen, which I showed you before. And you can do that. Inviting teachers. There's also a lot of essay resources. Last year, we provided a really great opportunity where we brought in the college essay guy, is kind of his nickname, to do 2 really comprehensive essay workshops. And he provided the students with a lot of free resources. Students have them already. If you guys remember all of that, that occurred in June. But also many of his resources are linked here in this particular document. Under financial aid, if you go to FAFSA or CSS profile, it takes you right to the link where you can set up an account and so forth. We have our own little red square for Rutgers because because Miss Javik is a huge Rutgers fan, and she said that this document wouldn't be complete without it. But also because so many of our students apply to Rutgers. So we have the Rutgers profile and helpful links for the Rutgers application. And then the SRAR tips and helpful hints. Rutgers put this together. We have this, but remember the SRAR is also used by other schools. So if it comes up here, some of the helpful hints in the SRAR will also be helpful in other SRARs that you might fill out for other schools. So you can see the profile. So it's got some scholarship search engines that we have here. Just a lot of really good information in this one document. This is already in the classroom and it's updated as we get new information. We sometimes will throw some college admissions in the news if we see an article that's really enlightening or good information for everybody. We will add that in here in college admissions in the news. So this is sort of a fluid document that we keep updating and adding to. Okay. So I know that was a lot. And as I said, we're going to have our follow-ups tomorrow and we will be working together over the next several months as we all get through this process, recognizing that everybody might not be at the same spot in the process. So what we're going to do now is, let me see if I can do this, is we're going to, I'm going to allow people to type questions in the chat at this point in time that the hosts and panelists will be able to see. First, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. There we go. We're back. And this is a chance, if we were in person, I'd say who has questions, and we would go from there. So this is an opportunity now for you to ask questions of anything that we just covered, any follow-up things, and then the counselors and I are on this panel to answer those particular questions. The deadline is 10:10. I wonder what school that is. I do know there are some 10:15s, not very many, but there are a couple of schools that have October 15th deadlines. But if you have a school that's October 10th, tomorrow or ASAP, your child should be speaking with the counselor and making sure that all their documents are in order, that they have their rec packet, and they should definitely be requesting that transcript through Naviance at their earliest convenience. Counselors, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, and I can chime in. I'm seeing, is there a limit on the number of colleges that we apply? There is no limit, but as we've talked to the students about over and over again, it's about that balanced list, right? So we're really looking for a majority of the schools to be in that target range. We have a couple of reaches. We have a couple schools that we think are probable. So on average, I mean, it varies. Some students apply to one school early, and then that's it. And they're happy with that. Other students apply to 10, 15 colleges. We usually talk to our students about rounds. Think about the colleges that you're applying to early. When will you hear back from them? And that might impact your overall list. So there's not really a magic number, but it's certainly something that counselors are willing to look at with each student, the number of colleges on their list and whether or not to revise that list and narrow it down.
I also see.
Go ahead.
Oh, I also see a question about how to request a letter of recommendation from someone outside of WWP. Mrs. Walsh did go over that. That would be something that you would do through common application. That's the only time that you would invite an outside recommender. Other than that, as you heard, if the teacher has a WWP account, which they all do, you would be requesting them through Naviance, and we will go over that again when you see your counselor in the session during lunch.
I see a question about prioritizing schoolwork versus college applications. This is definitely something that we see with our seniors. It gets very busy the beginning of senior year. You're working on your senior year classes, you're working on your college applications, and the fun stuff that goes along with being a senior, all the activities. So I think you'll hear us say, and students, you'll hear us say balance. It's really about balancing everything out and, you know, making sure that you are prioritizing your schoolwork, because your senior classes are very important. And as Mrs. Walsh mentioned, a lot of your schools that you're applying to may want to see first marking period, and then most of them will want to see your mid-year grades. So senior year grades are still very, very important. Your classes are very, very important. So it really is a matter of balancing all of that. So don't forget about your classwork, but also stay on top of your deadlines for your college applications.
Exactly.
Another question I see is, do you need to wait until the deadline for applying to colleges? And no, if you know you're going to you want to apply to the college, you can go ahead and apply and you know, work out your schedule so you're getting everything else done and applying by the deadline. As long as you are managing the process and you have told your counselor by requesting a transcript in Naviance that you are applying, and letting your teachers know by requesting them, then everyone is working, and so are you.
Should we go to our teachers in person and ask them about the status of our rec letter? Hopefully you went to them in person to request the rec letter, and you should definitely stay in touch with them. But once you request, remember, you're not the only one requesting. So they probably have some of these teachers that are junior year teachers write for many students. So once you request them in Naviance, know that they have 3 weeks. So should you check in? Yeah, you're the manager of the process. You should check in once in a while, but give them a little bit of time. You know, you might just want to check to make sure they saw it, but I guarantee you they saw it because these teachers are connected to Naviance and they get notification when you request. But certainly, you know, there's a fine line between kind of following up and bugging them a little bit. So we want to give them a little bit of time to write that letter. They have 3 weeks. That's why, as long as you abide by your timeline, your stuff won't have any trouble getting to the schools on time.
And I'm seeing questions, teacher recs are separate than counselor recs. And we're seeing some questions too about, can you apply to more early action colleges or how many? We can't stress enough how important it is to look at each college website. Every college website is going to say how many teacher recs are allowed. That is separate from the counselor rec. Some colleges have specific restrictions on a restricted early action, others don't. So that's really important that the students are looking at each college. There's questions on here about when to submit test scores. Can you submit it after the deadline? A lot of the colleges also specify this is our application deadline. This is when the student has to hit submit on their Common App. However, supplementary information like teacher rec, counselor rec, test scores can be accepted up to 2 weeks after that deadline. So it's just really important, again, with a lot of the questions that we're seeing in the chat, that you're looking at each college website, you're understanding the deadline, you're understanding what that deadline means, and again, what you're agreeing to in that early action, or again, with the test scores if that's necessary. We're also seeing, again, some questions about the college process answers, which we can't, you know, reiterate enough how important that document is, because most of the time when students come with us with questions, we can go into that document and find the answers. It's posted on Google Classroom. So if you haven't already gotten access to it, ask your students. I think we said earlier, almost 100% attendance on that Google Classroom on the class of 2024, which we're super pleased about. So let your student show you that from their Google Classroom. It is there, we promise you, and there's a lot of information on there as well. Same thing with the New Jersey ID.
Answer the Rutgers question, because I see a Rutgers question. Rutgers is on the Common App this year. This is the first year that they've joined the Common App, which is very exciting, but they are still requiring the SRAR. So you'll need to complete the Common App and add Rutgers to your Common App, but also complete the SRAR. And again, as Mrs. Rooney said, in the answers, the college process answers, there's that special box just for Rutgers, and that information is in there and can help walk you through the SRAR. And that's where your unofficial transcript copy that you'll be getting at your counselor meeting will come in very handy, because you'll need all those courses and your grades to fill in the SRAR. So make sure you do complete the SRAR for Rutgers as well.
Right. We will be letting commended students know when we get that information. We don't have the commended students as of yet. We will get certificates, notify the commended students, so it's something that they can put on their resume and their application information.
I'm also seeing questions about how do we know which college reps are coming? That's also posted in Naviance. We can also show you when you meet with your counselor, just so you can get a more zoomed in view of that. But it's in Naviance under colleges and then visits. And you'll see a list where you can register. You can see the whole list of what we have on our calendar now for colleges coming between now and about the mid to late December. So we definitely encourage you to continue to sign up and meet the rep. And also, many of those college reps that you will meet during lunch are usually the ones that are going to be reading your applications. I just met with a college rep today, and she did say that, yet she's one of the readers for our region. So it's another great way for you to introduce yourself and put a name to a face.
I'm noticing some questions about what to report for GPA. We recommend you do your unweighted GPA out of a 4.0 scale. However, you can report your weighted as well. I think it's really just important for everyone to know on here too, the transcript gets sent. You know, Common App schools, they also receive your transcript, so they're able to see your weighted and unweighted GPA. So keep that in mind. That is, again, separate Common App schools. Some of them require you to do the SRAR as well on top of that, where you're going through your academic record, which we're going to share with the students their transcript tomorrow. That is just their coursework. Some of the questions on here are about AP exam scores on the SRAR. The SRAR is simply your self-reported academic record of your courses that you have taken in high school. So that is different than AP exam scores, separate from that. I'm seeing again early decision versus early action. Typically, when you see the word action, early action, it's non-binding. There are restricted early action plans, but they are still non-binding. They are just specific about what other schools you can apply to. Early decision, that word decision is a binding agreement. And again, reiterating what we said earlier, really important. Again, a lot of these questions, each particular college will lay out exactly their requirements for admissions, as well as exactly what their early action, restricted early action, early decision agreements are. Some questions on here about rolling. That means as they receive your information, they will then give you a decision. In our experiences at West Windsor-Plainsboro, we've never seen that work against our students, even with us having this presentation today and saying 3 weeks from now, we can send information out. So again, if a student has a rolling and they're ready to apply, they should be requesting their transcripts and Naviance tonight, for example. And there are questions in the chat about that. That is how you request your transcripts, exactly what Mrs. Welsh went through. You're going on to Naviance, you're clicking those boxes, and then we as counselors actually get alerts that say you have new requests, and we're able to go in and see that. When you do the same thing for your teacher recs, same thing. They're going to get an alert to say that you are requesting them. We have access to see your deadlines on our end. You will be able to also see under managed transcripts, you will be able to see students on your end where we are in the process, when we have submitted your materials, when your teacher recs have gone. And I always kind of describe it as there's like a virtual mailbox, right? So the students are sending their common application to that virtual mailbox. We, through the use of Naviance, and I think it's important to clarify that too, nothing leaves Naviance that we don't agree to have leave Naviance. So your input and stuff does not leave Naviance, but the school profile does, the completed rec does, the transcript does, right? When all those pieces get to that virtual mailbox, so to speak, along with that application fee, because the colleges certainly want that money in order to open that mailbox, and the deadline has come, that is when they open and review your stuff. So again, thinking about it in moving parts, everything going to that mailbox, and by the deadline, and with that admissions fee, the colleges will open it up and start reviewing your application in its completion.
There's a question about rec letters being tailored to certain universities. That doesn't happen and is never expected because it's the Common App. It's not like we can't send multiple letters to different schools through Naviance and the Common App. So it's one letter for every school, and the schools completely understand that. Every system is sort of set up the same way with the Common App. The same letter goes to every school. It's not so much tailored to the school as it is tailored to the strength of the students and what they're going to bring to their particular campuses based on what the teachers know about them and so forth.
I see a question about the rep visits and where to find them. On your students and seniors on your Naviance page, in the bottom right corner, it says what's new. And that has a list of all of the calendar events for rep visits. It will tell you who's coming, the date, the time, and then you can find out more information if you just click on it, and you'll be able to register for those rep visits. So right in the bottom right corner of your home page for Naviance.
And I'm seeing some questions about some teachers who may have retired or left South in recommendations. And I think in that particular case, if the student has been in contact with that teacher in that particular, they should definitely be in contact for that in order to facilitate those recommendation letters. And that's something too that we as counselors can address on a case-to-case basis with our students come Monday or moving forward if they have further questions about that.
Someone asked where the answers document is located in the classroom. It's located under classwork, and it's literally under a topic called the answers, and you can click on it and it's right there.
I'm also seeing a question about for colleges not on Common App, but have a separate system for reviewing teacher rec letters. do still request through Naviance. So like Mrs. Walsh said, if this college is it participates with common application, that's how you are applying. Otherwise, if it has a little computer icon with a little icon, it doesn't say CA in the middle, it just means that you're applying electronically, and then our documents are sent electronically through Naviance to that institution. But there is a specific question about another system, such as a college like Georgetown University. In that case, there's very, very, very few schools out there. Georgetown is one that does not participate with Common App, or so in that case, Georgetown, on their application, there will be a place for a student to indicate the name of their counselor and the teachers that they are requesting that are going to write on their behalf. And that is really the only exception. And counselors you can chime into, but to my knowledge, it's really only been a Georgetown of that sort.
Yeah, there might be a few other examples, I don't know, but that's why it's important to check the website. So someone asked about early decision. Are we restricted to apply to other schools? You can only apply to one early decision school, because remember, you're saying I'm definitely coming there, and nobody can attend two schools at the same time. So you apply to one early decision, but there's another thing called restrictive early action. So there are some schools that say you can apply here early action. It's not binding, but you can't apply to any other school's early action. So there's not a lot that do that, but there are a few out there that are restrictive early action. So the bottom line is just make sure you understand the terms and what the rules are around their particular admission types, so that you know that you're not sort of breaking any rules. We can't process more than one early decision, so we would probably catch that somewhere along the line. But hopefully we don't have to catch it. You just kind of understand, or always ask. The counselors are so available in so many different ways. So please reach out with any questions.
And that being said, all of us have done this many times over, and many of your teachers have too. So, all the teachers know at this point that Georgetown and Naviance don't talk. And so we look for the email, the counselors look for the email. But keep in mind, we want everything on Naviance, every school that they're interested in applying to, just so we can have track through the application process. But again, many of you are going through this the first time, but many of your teachers, this is not their first time. It's not our first time as counselors. So we will walk you through and answer those questions along the way for sure.
Yep. And so the test optional, honestly, if you talk to any admissions rep, they want you to submit your scores if you want to, but they do not hold it against you. They don't ask you why you're not reporting the test scores. They make an assumption if you're not reporting the test scores, that you personally, for whatever reason, don't feel like the test scores put you in the best light, or you just don't want to do it, or maybe you just never took the test for some reason or another. So they don't care. What happens is there's a lot of factors in their decision, right? There's your transcript is a primary factor, your recommendations, your essay is important. That's why we provide so many essay resources. And then your recommendations, and then your SAT. So if you take away the SAT piece of it, it's okay. It just kind of spreads a little more importance to some of the other pieces. And it's not a bad thing. It can be a really good thing, because some people don't do as well as they'd like to do on a given Saturday, but they come here every day, they work hard, they make relationships, they embrace the community. That's all good stuff. And that's exactly why a lot of schools did not go back to tests, even post-COVID, when they became readily available, because they realized they were getting a lot of fabulous applicants that might not have applied otherwise, because they were afraid their test scores weren't good enough. So if, that's a conversation. If you're not sure what to do, you can talk to your counselor, but honestly, that's a great question for the reps to come in. Hey, my test score is such and such. Do you think I should submit my scores, or should I just kind of leave that piece out and focus on the other pieces? And they're happy to answer that question. So, don't worry about that. It's just what it did is sort of added another element to our decisions as we're preparing, to put our best foot forward in this application process. Also,
I see. Oh, go ahead.
This is just a quick one. AP exams that were taken with self-study they don't go in the SRAR. That's only coursework.
I just saw a question and it's near and dear to my heart because I have my own senior at home. So I feel for all of you, I'm in the same position. How much support should parents provide considering constant fights and arguments? This is a big process and there are a lot of pieces to it. So I understand completely. I think one of the things a lot of us tell the students is that we want the students driving the bus, but we want the family on the bus. So we want you to be a part of the process with them, but we do like to see students taking the lead and taking the initiative for their applications and completing all of the pieces. So my suggestion as a fellow senior parent is just be as supportive as possible, follow up with them, but let them take the reins a little bit and let them take on, these decisions that are a really big part of their future. But just be there, support them and walk through it with them, but do allow them to kind of take the reins a little bit.
Great advice, Ms. Chapman.
Mhm.
I am seeing if we're applying to colleges on their websites and not the Common App. We're not doing that, remember? If they're Common App, you must do Common App. Like that's the golden rule for the night. That's not an option. If they are on the Common Application, you must apply through the Common Application and not on their website. And that's because we are a Naviance school and the only way for everything to connect is to use the Common App to connect to Naviance.
I was seeing some rec letter, just follow up to the rec letter questions. If you have a person outside of WWPRSD, meaning they don't have a WWPRSD email, they're not a teacher, they are a boss, extracurricular, and you would like them to, write a rec for you, you would actually invite them through the Common App under other recommenders. And we did go through this last year as well. So again, in those cases, keeping in mind what the colleges are looking for, they're looking for teacher recommendations. That is specifically what they're looking for. So if you are sending an other recommender, you can request via the Common App, and there should be a specific reason for that. I'm also seeing some questions about meeting deadlines. Again, we have done this process many, many times, and so have teachers. So teachers are well aware in West Windsor-Plainsboro that most students have a November 1st deadline. And so they are used to writing by that November 1st deadline. They are used to that. I know that there are some questions on here about earlier deadlines. Those are students that definitely want to connect with us at our lunch meetings right away, connect with their teachers right away if they have a deadline prior to November 1. But we can promise you that we all work together to meet that deadline together. So it will happen by the deadline.
And I see a question about people from your volunteer organization writing recommendation letters. Remember, if they don't have a WWP address, you would request them through Common App, being mindful of how many letters the school wants. They actually don't want to read, 15 letters. That's why they put limits on it. If they do allow a third letter from, your volunteer organization, your piano teacher, your outside coach or something like that, it could add value if they're adding something different to the application, which they probably would be different than maybe a teacher recommendation. So it could potentially add value if the school wants it. But some of these schools you'll see as you get your list, they just have a lot to read. They really got to focus on the essays and the teacher recommendations, the council recommendations, so forth. They don't want students to feel the need to send in 10 more recs in order to get into the school. It's not necessary. But if they allow it and you have somebody that might add a different element about you to the application process, go have at it. I think that's great.
I see a question about, will senior year grades be calculated into the GPA? They will not be calculated into the GPA. The transcripts that the colleges will receive will have the calculation of 9, 10, and 11th. That being said, one of the counselors earlier even mentioned that senior grades do still matter. So we definitely want, to let our seniors know, keep working hard, because there's a very good chance that the colleges you're applying to might want you to send your marking period 1 grades and also your mid-year grades. So we will explain that process as it gets closer to that date, but understand that your senior grades do matter and keep working hard until you graduate.
Don't get too caught up on the GPA part, because 99% of the schools recalculate their own GPA. You can only imagine all the different transcripts and grading scales and so forth that a college gets. Even if you just looked at schools around here, Princeton and Heightstown and Bordentown and so forth have different grading scales and grading policies. So they often just recalculate their own so that everybody's on the same scale. So, don't get caught up in the GPA, so to speak. They know what an A, a B, and a C is, right? But they're not really worried about what West Windsor calculates as a GPA. They read your transcript line by line like a book. They watch how you developed, how you challenged yourself at some point, and so forth. So, the GPA is just sort of a product of all of that. Somebody asked, how do I commit early decision until I have the financial package? That's the problem with early decision. And that's why it's only for people that can make that kind of commitment and understand that it's a binding contract. So you don't need to go early decision. There's students, many students that go to college every single year, thousands and thousands of students around the country that never apply early decision, and they still get into schools and do just fine. So if you have more personal questions about the early decision, certainly reach out to the counselor.
And there were some questions about restricted early action and can you do it with early decision? Again, those are restrictive agreements. So no, typically when you look at those agreements, again, on their website, you can't do both of those. Most restricted early action agreements say that you can apply to public schools, early action, public universities, not private. Again, reading the fine print, we can't stress enough the importance of making sure that you are going on each college website and you're looking at what they are requiring, how many of letters of recs they want, and you're following those rules. I'm seeing some questions too about more recommendation letters. Again, as we stressed earlier, they're asking for 2 teacher recs and a counselor rec. Anything in addition to that is in addition to what they haven't asked for. So being mindful of the purpose of that is really important.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if there's anything that we kind of missed.
See a couple of questions about submitting test scores from College Board requesting official test scores. It does take a while. So I would definitely suggest, if you're planning on requesting official scores from the College Board or from ACT, that you do so leaving yourself plenty of time. I do not suggest waiting till the day before the deadline to request them. They do offer an expedited send, but it's extra money and you're already paying for those scores to be sent. So again, keeping in mind your timelines and making sure that if you are sending official scores from the College Board or from ACT, that you do so with plenty of time to put in that request.
Payment does happen via the Common App. So there's some questions on that when you get to the end of your application, whether it be on the Common App, whether it be on the University of California system. There will be a payment part to that application embedded in that. So yes, that is part of that as well.
I think if you Google colleges that accept self-reported test scores, you can get a relatively comprehensive list. Just be careful, because the best source for all that information is the college website itself. So if you have 15 schools that you're applying to, you can certainly get this list, but I would strongly suggest going to 15 websites just to make sure what their admission guidelines are. We don't want to wait till 2 weeks after the deadline to find out we didn't follow one of the guidelines and now something's considered late or something like that. It's really important to understand what your schools require, what they accept, and so forth.
I see a question about, do AP scores appear on the transcript, and they do not.
And again, letters of rec, we're all working together. That's how we first started, right? So when you request a transcript from us, the counselors, that starts our clock with our recommendation letter and us getting the transcript out and the school profile out. When you request your teacher, same thing, it starts their clock. We're all working at the same time. My stuff might go before the teacher, might go before the student, might go any type of what order, but that's why we talk about that virtual mailbox. It all just goes there, and once the mailbox is all complete, the college opens it. So we don't all have to do it on the same day or in any order. It's all happening at the same time.
There's a question about parents coming and meeting our college representatives during lunch. You cannot come during lunch. However, you're more than welcome to come on October 19th to our college fair. And like I said, as we get a little bit closer, we'll provide a comprehensive list of the colleges that are coming. We know the 100 and some colleges that have registered already. So if you have a specific question about schools, you know, your counselor can probably answer that, or Ms. Ficini and I, who are on the college fair committee, can answer that for you. But we will provide an extensive list of exactly who's coming, and parents are more than welcome to come to those to the fair to talk to the reps. As far as visiting in person, you know, it's important, but it's, you know, I always say it's more important because I think that it's really valuable for the student to see the campus, to see the kids that are on campus, to hear what they have to offer, to see a dorm room. Are you going to be able to visit every school on your list? No, that's, you know, near impossible. But if you have some schools that are within an easy driving distance, if you haven't visited yet, you know, I strongly suggest that you kind of take some time. They have Saturday tours, a lot of these schools. They do like to see you come to their campuses, especially if it's close. It could potentially demonstrate some interest or show demonstrated interest, which could be important to them. So, you know, I would never say don't visit, but visit for yourself, not just because it kind of looks good. Visit for the information, that the valuable information that you get on the visit.
I see a question about adding colleges to Naviance that are not in the Common App. Naviance has just about every college. It'd be easier to make a list of the colleges that Naviance doesn't have on it. So they do not need to be on the Common App to be listed in Naviance. Just that little icon, if it has a CA, it is on the Common App. And if it does not, it's probably directly through the institution. So all your schools can be listed through Naviance.
Right. I do see a question about the conflicts over the next 2 days with college rep visits. We do recognize that there are some popular schools coming in the next 2 days. But unfortunately for us, time is of the essence, and we wanted to see the kids, students as close as possible to this particular meeting. If you are wanting to visit the college rep instead, which makes sense, especially if you're applying to the particular schools, feel free to do that. And then maybe make an appointment with your counselor at a different time to get your transcript. And with any of your lingering questions, we don't want you to feel that you can't go to your college rep visit. We were so booked with college rep visits, we couldn't just block out the days. And so we didn't. And then of course we got some schools that are pretty popular with our students that are coming. So, you know, do the best you can, but feel free to go to your visit if you'd like, and then follow up with your counselor afterwards. If you're here tonight, maybe a lot of your questions got answered, and that'd be awesome. Anything else, panel?
I see. Who would you suggest would be the best person to edit your Common App? You know, you could always have your language arts teacher take a look at it, just to get some feedback. You could have your counselor take a look at it. Not so much, I mean, we could look at it for editing, but we would look more at the content aspect of it and point out any editing things that we feel are suggestions for you. But a trusted adult, someone in your family, just to get a look at it. So you have a lot of resources, you know, at your disposal.
There's a question
about that question about ED grades. Typically, in our experience, students who apply early decision, we are typically getting a request for first marking period grades. We typically get that for early decision. And then we talked about this earlier. Any school that has not issued a decision by the mid-year, they are looking for your mid-year grades. That is one letter grade for each of your courses. So it's your average of your first 2 marking periods into one letter grade. So those are the senior year grades that come into play, to just kind of reiterate that again.
Someone asked if you can add more schools later and then add, you know, request the teachers. Absolutely. Remember, the deadlines and, you know, you might not know all the schools you're applying to right now, but if you know 3, you put 3 in. If you know 1, you put 1 in. You can always add schools. Sometimes students find a college in January they discovered, and all of a sudden they want to apply there. And as long as you're not past the deadline, you can always add schools. That never stops.
It looks like a lot of these other questions might be more individual questions. So again, we're meeting with the students during our lunch meetings. We certainly have, you know, emails. I'm not sure if you're seeing any other bigger questions on here, counselors, for us to answer.
I think we covered so much of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think to your point, Mrs. Rooney, a lot of them seem to be a little bit more individual, so we can cover them individually with those students.
And that last, you know, I'm seeing a question about that number again. I think we started with that. I think there's a reason the Common App stops at 20, right? So I think that that's something just to keep in mind, that that might be the number. So if you exceed that, it becomes a little bit more complicated. Again, we can, you know, work with students one-to-one, but I think that number was specifically determined on the Common App to end at 20, and it's not endless. So we definitely feel as counselors, the more colleges you have on your list and applications you're managing, the more stressful it can be. It's a lot to manage. So making sure that that list is very much so what we use the word curated and thoughtful is a good way to go.
And then, you know, through all of this, just remember that we're here to help you through it. Our counseling team is one of the best in the state, if I must say so myself. We're awesome, and we've done this, you know, we're all very experienced, and we're here to help. And so we, just like the reps that come here, we speak to them every day too. And the reps, we are always asking them questions and getting more knowledge. We go on college visits as counselors. We send counselors to the national conference each year. There's a couple counselors that are leaving in a couple days for that. So our district is super supportive of us doing professional development in the area of college counseling. And it's, you know, it's beneficial to us, but we pass that knowledge and that information on to your students, and hopefully make everybody feel better. This is supposed to be an exciting time, hopefully not a stressful time. So let's keep it that way, and always feel free to reach out and ask any questions. So
and just 2 more plugs. One, again, we'll make sure everything's posted in Google Classroom. So we'll double check about the answers. We'll make sure that this presentation is posted. And then I also just want to shout out to Mrs. Walsh for tonight and what she did. And she's also the person who's hitting send on those Wednesday Wisdom emails. So we are seeing some other questions about things that might come along later on in the process. Waitlist deferred, hold that. Right now, we're in the process of applying. We're excited. But check those emails every Wednesday, because they're typically very timely to what's going on in the college process. So we will continue to communicate. And again, thank you to Mrs. Walsh for all that she does for this team, and especially, you know, tonight.
Yep. And for the counselors to give up their evening to be here with all of us. So appreciate everybody. And we look forward to working with you and your students in this whole process. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Take care. Be well.